Truth Unveiled here, and today I have a critical report to share with you. I'm going to be talking about what the Pentagon has just released, as well as the Operation Depopulation and the bigger agenda behind all this, because I don't know if you heard of this, but this comes from The Intercept, and it says, Pentagon video warns of unavoidable dystopian future for world's biggest city. And you're going to see the bigger agenda behind all these cities and why your governments want you in these cities, not just in America, but also worldwide. And so the actual report says that the year is 2030. Forget about flying cars, robot maids, and moving sidewalks that we were once promised. They're not happening. But that doesn't mean the future is a total unknown, because according to a startling Pentagon video, and we're going to watch that video together, that was obtained by The Intercept, the future of worldwide cities will be an amalgam of the settings of Escape from New York and RoboCop, with dashes of the Warriors and Divergent thrown in. It will be a world of Robert Kaplan-esque urban hellscapes, brutal and anarchic super cities filled with the gangs of youth gone wild, arrest of underclass, criminal syndicates, and bands of malicious hackers. At least that's the scenarios that's outlined in Megacities, Urban Future, The Emerging Complexity, which is a 5-minute video that has been used at the Pentagon's Joint Special Operations University, and later on we're going to watch this video together. All that stands between the coming chaos and the good people of Lagos and Dhaka, or maybe even New York City, is the U.S. Army, according to the video which The Intercept obtained via the Freedom of Information Act, or the FOIA, and we're also going to be going over government documentation, because yes, your government is getting ready for this stuff literally. And so now we're going to watch that video together, but pay close attention to the stark reality coming to a mega city near you.
The future is urban. By 2030, urban areas are expected to grow by 1.4 billion, with that growth occurring almost entirely in the developing world. Cities will account for 60% of the world's population and 70% of the world's GDP. The urban environment will be the locus where drivers of instability will converge. It is the domain that by the year 2030, 60% of urban dwellers will be under the age of 18. The cities that grow the fastest will be the most challenged as resources become constrained and illicit networks fill the gap left by overextended and undercapitalized governments. The risk of natural disasters compounded by geography, climate changes, unregulated growth, and substandard infrastructure intersect to frustrate humanitarian relief. Growth will magnify the increasing separation between rich and poor. Religious and ethnic tensions will be a defining element of the social landscape. Stagnation will coexist with unprecedented development as impoverishment, slums, and shantytowns rapidly expand alongside modern high-rises, technological advances, and ever-increasing levels of prosperity. This is the world of our future. It is one we are not prepared to effectively operate within, and it is unavoidable. Megacities are complex systems where people and structures are compressed together in ways that defy both our understanding of city planning and military doctrine. It is an ecosystem that demands a highly agile and adaptive force to successfully operate within. Infrastructures will vary radically, with concentrations of high-tech transportation, globally connected air and seaports, contemporary water, utilities, and waste disposal intermixed with open landfills, overburdened sewers, polluted water, and makeshift power grids. Living habitats will extend from the high-rise to the ground-level cottage to subterranean labyrinths, each defined by its own social code and rule of law. Social structures will be equally challenged, if not dysfunctional, as historic ways of life clash with modern living, ethnic and racial differences are forced to live together, and criminal networks offer opportunity for the growing mass of unemployed. This becomes the nervous system of non-nation-state, unaligned individuals and organizations that live and work in the shadows of national rule. Where physical domains can be seen, digital domains will have limitless potential to breed and expand without limit. Digital security and trade will be increasingly threatened by sophisticated illicit economies and decentralized syndicates of crime to give adversaries global reach at an unprecedented level. This will add to the complexities of human targeting, as a proportionally smaller number of adversaries intermingle with the larger and increasing number of citizens. The scale and density of these domains is daunting. In a city of 10 million, where you hold the support of 99% of the population, the remaining 1% represents a threat of 100,000. It is an environment of convergence, hidden amongst the enormous scale and complexity of the megacity. These are the future breeding grounds, incubators, and launching pads for adversaries and hybrid threats. Linked globally, these are man-made labyrinths that provide refuge and movement across the vast sections of these cities where alternate forms of governance have taken control. The advice of doctrine, from Sun Tzu to current field manuals, has provided two fundamental options. Avoid the cities, or establish a cordon to either wait out the adversary or drain the swamp of non-combatants and engage the remaining adversaries in high-intensity conflict within. Even our counterinsurgency doctrine, honed in the cities of Iraq and the mountains of Afghanistan, is inadequate to address the sheer scale of population in the future urban reality. From the streets of Aachen to the citadel and Way, we have defeated adversaries who attempted to use urban terrain to their advantage. Urban conflict is written deep into the Army's histories. But in tomorrow's conflict, these megacities are orders of magnitude greater in complexity, and our current options do not meet strategic ends. Our future operations must allow us to rapidly return the city to the people. They will be too large and complex to isolate or cordon in their entirety, yet our soldiers will have to operate within these ecosystems with minimal disruption and flow. Our current and past strategies can no longer hold. We are facing environments that the masters of war never foresaw. We are facing a threat that requires us to redefine doctrine and the force in radically new and different ways. The future Army will confront a highly sophisticated urban-centric threat that will require that urban operations become the core requirement for the future land force. The threat is clear. Our direction remains to be defined. The future is urban.
It's no surprise or coincidence that the Pentagon would just so happen to release that video just weeks before the selections in America, not to mention how that video just so happens to eerily show everything resulting from crisis to rule of law and martial law, as well as the urbanization of cities, the destruction to take place, riots and protesting, natural disasters, buildings collapsing, overpollution and overpopulation, city growth, as well as religious and ethnic tensions, not to mention impoverishments and trash everywhere. But if you don't think that this stuff is designed ahead of time, well, it's time to think again, especially how they're doing it under the guises of energy and climate change, as well as America 2050. Now, if you have not heard of this website is what getting ready for America to have mega cities and mega regions, and we're going to talk more about that, as well as America 2050, not to mention the UN, as well as Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. But before we do that, this talks more about America 2050 and gives a brief overview. And it says, rebuilding and renewing America. Sounds like what? Order out of chaos, Phoenix rising out of the ashes. Do you understand what this is really saying? I hope so. But it says America 2050 has launched a quote, rebuilding and renewing America campaign in response to the serious challenges of repairing the nation's deteriorating inadequate infrastructure systems and building capacity for sustainable population and economic growth in the future. Because what they want you to believe is that, oh, there's overpopulation and oh, there's too many people on the plane, because according to Mr. Kissinger and all those other elite Zionists at the very top, they think there's too many people in the world, and according to them, they have to start what? Depopulating the plane to 500 million. Just look at the Georgia Guidestones. And so their solution to these supposed problems is that they're calling on the federal government to develop a national infrastructure investment plan that identifies investments in integrated systems of roads, rails, and ports, electricity transmission and the smart grid, broadband communication, sounds like more spying indeed, and water infrastructure to help America compete in the worldwide economy and transition our fossil fuel dependent economy to a low carbon future. And they want you to think, oh, we're doing it for the economy, oh, we're doing it for the environment, when we know darn better than that. Then it says, in the absence of federal action, America 2050's National Committee of Civic, business, and community leaders are beginning to develop the components of the National Infrastructure Investment Plan and recommendations to reform outdated and ineffective federal transportation, energy, and water policies. And one of the ways that they're doing this is what? Try to get everybody into these cities for what? Depopulation, just as you saw in that Pentagon video. Now they're trying to tell you that, oh, we want to do it by 2050, but honestly, folks, the plan is already in place. It's already being done. And their goal for shaping the infrastructure investment plan is to what? Promote a triple bottom line strategy for infrastructure development in the United States. And it refers to using environmental sustainability and social equity measures as other important bottom lines to consider in weighing investment decisions in addition to financial return on investment. This is a cross-cutting theme for all our discussions and our activities because they really want to catalyze change indeed. And this is how they plan on doing it with mega regions and mega cities. And you're going to see why this is so dangerous indeed, because Mr. Obama was exactly right. Change is coming to America indeed. Do you know what type of change is coming? I hope so. But these are some of the mega regions that we're going to actually enlarge that map in just a second to come. But before we do, I just wanted to talk more about this because it says most of the nation's rapid population growth and an ever even larger share of its economic expansion is expected to occur in 11 megaregions, which are going to be large networks of metropolitan regions, each megaregion covering thousands of square miles and located in every part of the country. And the 5 major categories of relationships that define these megaregions are environmental systems and topography, infrastructure systems, economic linkages, settlement patterns and land use, as well as shared culture and history. But I hope you see the bigger agenda behind all this. They want all these big cities and mega cities so not only can they spy on us even more and track our every move, but so that they can also crowd everyone together in these mega cities. They can also surveil on us even easier. Not only that, but it's easier to control the cities and control the people and lock down each mega city so that people cannot get out. That's why they want you heavily reliant on these cities. That's why they don't want you living these cities and being self-sufficient, because they know if you do, then they have no way of controlling you. Now here's that enlarged map so that you can see it even better and more clearly, but this is the map that they're trying to merge America into in 11 mega regions or mega cities, and you're going to see why. Now this is from the same website that comes from America 2050, and these are the respective 11 mega regions as you can see right here. And region number 1 is the Northeast that contains much of Boston and New York City and Philadelphia and Washington, D.C., and you can see the population right here with the circles and their respective regions and locations. Number 2, we have the Great Lakes right here, which comprises even places in Canada such as Toronto and Detroit, Michigan, as well as Chicago and many other cities along the Great Lakes regions, even places such as St. Louis and Kansas City. But we even have the Piedmont Atlantic, which includes places like Atlanta, Georgia, and many other places in North and South Carolina, as well as Florida. And notice how Florida, they have their own region, and then the Gulf Coast includes places such as Louisiana and Mississippi, Alabama, and the Deep South, and Texas too. And then we have the Texas Triangle, which includes places like Dallas and even Oklahoma as well. And then if we get over more towards the West Coast, we have places such as the Front Range, which includes Colorado, and then the Arizona Sun Corridor, which is mostly Phoenix, Arizona. And then we have Northern and Southern California, which are 2 different mega regions. Northern includes places such as San Francisco, and then Southern California includes San Diego and Los Angeles and many other suburban regions there. And then finally we have Cascadia, which is mostly northwestern United States, which includes Seattle and Portland, Oregon, and many other places there as well. And it's interesting and suspicious too, because didn't FEMA just do a giant Cascadia rising drill back of June of 2016? Very interesting and suspicious indeed. But see, this isn't just a thing for America. This is also a worldwide problem too, because now I'm showing you a report from the UN which says world's population increasingly urban with more than half living in urban areas. Today, 54% of the world's population lives in urban areas, a proportion that is expected to increase 66% by the year 2050. Projections show that urbanization combined with the overall growth of the world's population could add another 2.5 billion people to urban populations by 2050, with close to 90% of the increase concentrated in Asia and Africa, according to a new United Nations or UN report that was launched as of July 10th of 2014, and we're going to go to that report in just a second. But notice how they expect that the urban population is to surpass 6 billion by the year 2045. And we know that the elite do not want the population to increase. The Zionists, as well as the Bilderbergs and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, they want the population to decrease by a major percentage. But the easiest way for them to do that is to do what? Put everybody into these cities, which is a very insidious plan indeed. But here I am at the actual UN report, which even talks more about it, and we're going to go over more of it in detail, but it comes from 2014. As you see, it's called the World Urbanization Prospects, and it's from the United Nations, our favorite, because by the way, they're going to be taking over the world with the Paris Agreement sooner than you think. And this only 32 pages. I highly recommend you read it on your own time, but we're going to go over it briefly together. Now, overall, this report talks about things that we've already been talking about, which is what? Merging everybody into these cities for depopulation, because it says more people live in urban areas than in rural areas, with 54% of the world's population residing in these areas as of 2014, and we've already talked about that. But then it says the most urbanized regions include Northern America, with 82% living in urban areas in 2014, Latin America and the Caribbean with 80%, as well as Europe at 73%. In contrast, Africa and Asia remain mostly rural, with 40 and 48% of their respective populations living in urban areas. All regions are expected to urbanize further over the coming decades. That's what they want us to believe. Africa and Asia are urbanizing faster than the other regions and are projected to become 56 and 64% urban respectively by the year 2050, if there even is a 2050. Now, the report goes on to talk about the urbanization in places such as Africa and Asia, and how more are starting to dwell in cities, and how it's becoming less and less rural in these respective places. But it's also interesting when it says just 3 countries, India, China, and Nigeria together, are expected to account for 37% of the projected growth of the world's urban population between 2014 and 2050. India is projected to add 404 million urban dwellers, China 292 million, and Nigeria 212 million, and close to half of the world's urban dwellers reside in relatively small settlements of less than 500,000 inhabitants, while only around 1 in 8 live in the 28 mega cities with more than 10 million inhabitants, and they want more for that so that they can fulfill the plans of depopulation. Then it talks about some of the cities, how they have millions, if not tens of millions of inhabitants in their cities, in places such as Tokyo, Japan, Delhi, India, Shanghai, China, Mexico City, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, and the list goes on and on from there. And the reason that I'm sharing all of this with you is because I want you to see the plans of the elite and the Illuminati for yourself, and see that no, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is conspiracy truth, because they're literally doing this, and they're getting ready to turn the world into their playpen, literally. And this is how they're doing it with these mega cities, because they know if they can get everybody in these cities, it's going to spark violence and wars and chaos indeed. And that's exactly what they want. But hopefully you see see the bigger agenda ahead of time. Now what I'm showing you right now comes from the UN, the United Nations Sustainable Development, and this is also commonly known as Agenda 21, also known as Operation Depopulation, and it comes from the UN Conference on Environment and Development that was released back in 1992, and this is the agenda that was in place for the 21st century, hence Agenda 21. Now, because this document is well over 350 pages, we're not going to go over all of it, but just see the hypocrisy for what it is, because they want you to believe that, oh, they're combating poverty and changing consumption patterns, and oh, they're combating climate change that doesn't really exist. No, we know the bigger agenda behind all this, and we see how all of this is playing out together and playing a role together in what their new world order, one world government, literally. But it doesn't stop there, because it gets much worse than that. Because I'm here at the UN Sustainable Development website, which talks about what? Agenda 2030, depopulation once again. And notice how they're planning these agendas and passing them and enforcing them without the approval of the 7 billion plus people that they're trying to enforce them on. Why is that the case? I'll leave all of the helpful information in the description box below so you can read some of this on your own time if you would like to, but these are some of the sustainable development goals. There are 17 of them, but think about how they're going to be accomplished, because they want you to believe that, oh, goal 1 is to end poverty in all its forms everywhere, end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture is goal number 2, and then goal number 3 is to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages, ensure inclusive and equitable quality education, and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all as goal 4. While that all sounds fine and good, we know exactly that what they're doing the opposite of that. Goal 5 is to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Goal 6 is to ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Goal 7 is to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all, and they just love using this word, because goal 8 says promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. That's a joke. And then goal 9 is to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. And then number 10 says reduce inequality within and among countries. But when have they ever done this? Or are they the ones that are pushing this agenda even more? Because goal 11 says make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, but they have not done that whatsoever. And then goal 12 says ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. Goal 13 is to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. Okay. And then number 14 says conserve and sustainably use the ocean, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. That explains them poisoning everything and killing off all the animals. Then number 15 talks about restoring and promoting sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems. 16 talks about peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development. Then 17 is to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the worldwide partnership for sustainable development. According to them, do not believe a word that they're telling you. And then it goes on to talk about how each goal, how they plan to end it by 2013, when we know this is not the case at all, and it was enforced as of January 1st, 2016. Please seek Yahuwah and his true son Yahusha, because as you see, this is a reality. It's coming to a police state near you, coming to a mega city near you. And the question is, are you ready for this stuff when it starts to happen? I hope so. But this is Truth Unveiled here, keeping you updated as always and saying shalom.